Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Growing Kentucky's Leaders. I am one of your hosts, Sheldon McKinney.
And I'm Ruth Ann Fink, your other host.
We're with the Kentucky FFA Foundation, and we have a great guest, like always. But today we have Brady Lawson, and Brady was the Kentucky FFA State Officer in 2021, 2022. He's from Morgan County and is currently a political science major at Morehead State University. And so he's had quite the adventure in school and has pursued some great things and stayed involved with the FFA along the way. So Brady, how about you introduce yourself to our listeners and just tell them a little bit about who you are and your goals for the future.
Yeah, so my name is Brady Lawson. I'm currently a junior political science major here at Morehead State University. Of course, like that brings with it a plethora of opportunities and experiences to be able to, talk to people that, with perspectives that you may not necessarily have heard before. So there's plenty of opportunities in that. Just very briefly, kind of my FFA journey, if you will. So FFA has just been truthfully a family tradition. My father was regional president. My uncle was regional vice president. My one of my papaws was chapter sentinel when he was in high school. So as you can tell, it's a pretty lengthy it's a pretty lengthy list of people that have especially propelled me to get involved in FFA. So I mean, in terms of my actual involvement, like you said, I was state officer. Before that, I was chapter president for 2 years. Ran for regional office, did not get regional office, but decided, what the heck, I want to run for state office anyway. Ended up
Yeah.
running for that, and of course, as you mentioned, certainly got that. After that, after state office, I've really been blessed with some opportunities here at Morehead State. I was contacted to join student government. Join student government. I've had multiple roles here, and I'm actually the incoming student body president. So
I
Well,
know we are looking forward to talking more about what you just mentioned, Brady. So we'll get to that in a minute, but I don't want to jump ahead too much. I kind of want to back up some. Thank you for telling our listeners and us about your FFA experience. I really want to ask what inspired you to pursue a degree in political science? What led you to where you're at now with your education?
sure. So I feel like, especially with state officers, it's pretty typical that, when you go into college, you're typically pursuing some sort of agriculture degree. For me, I've been interested in politics ever since the eighth grade. So I took a National Junior Honor Society trip to Washington, D.C. when I was in eighth grade, and just sort of fell in love with the city, fell in love with the history and the traditions associated with that. So I kind of always knew that I wanted to go into politics. My family was very involved in politics, have been for many generations. But I mean, truthfully, I was after something that I could make some change in. And for me, that looked like political science, and that doesn't look like, political science to everyone, of course. But in terms of, I saw, people up giving speeches in big fancy suits, and I was like, I kind of like the idea of that. Or, you watch, I might be one of the only people that watches C-SPAN regularly, but you get on there and you watch the US House and you watch the US Senate, and that just looked like something you're like, I would like to do that someday. And for me, that looked like political science, but outside of political science, I also take multiple communications classes. So I'm learning how to be properly communicating internally and externally as well. But just strictly in terms of, my political science degree, I kind of always knew that this was what was going to happen. I always wanted to major in political science ever since the eighth grade.
Oh, that's awesome. I think a lot of goals that we get to talk to people on this podcast, especially, is like it always started with I saw this happen and I saw myself doing it. And what a great example that FFA gets to provide to a lot of our students. They get to see state officers like you on stage and say, I want to do that. And so it's cool to hear a story kind of outside of FFA, but still yet very similar.
yeah, that's great, Brady. We're really proud of you. And so you have had this journey in student government.
Mhm.
We have had a few state officers who have also served as SGA presidents. I'm not sure if that's true for Morehead. So you may be our first one from Morehead. We'll have to fact check that.
Yeah.
Um, but what does it entail to be a student government president of a college in Kentucky? And what are you looking forward to in this role?
Right. Well, the unique role about being SGA president is that you're also student body president. So not only are you the face of student government on campus, but you're also that person that people come to when they have problems, specifically students on campus. And to that end, it's every single student. So we at Morehead State, we have kind of a complex student body in terms of, we have quite a few commuter students, quite a few non-traditional students, and also quite a few students that, live on campus. So really, I mean, what I'm really looking forward to is the challenge of balancing all of those. And I know that, it's difficult to say I'm excited for challenges, I guess, per se, but I'm really excited to, bring in all those different perspectives because I am a commuter. I don't live on campus, but being able to establish connections with people on campus has been especially important to me. It's really shaped my view of what college means. But in specifically, and Ellie McGowan, past state officer, was also student body president and SGA president over at Murray State, so the other MSU. Uh, but being able to make those contacts not only with people here at Morehead State, but around the entire state. Some of them, I may know, like Ellie, through FFA, and some of them, have no agricultural background at all. So being able to not only discuss and talk to people here at Morehead State, but also across the state. I mean, I'm just so excited to learn how other people do things that I may not necessarily know about.
The SGA president also serves on the board of regents,
Mhm.
for a university, who discusses budgets and hard things for a university. And I know that they have to be so appreciative of a student voice who is still thinking about, how am I going to pay my tuition? What other jobs do I have to work to maintain being a college student? And provide some of that perspective, because many of them have been removed from college for a long time and are well established in their careers. So having a voice of somebody who's relevant and who cares about the student body and is part of it is so important.
Just like you mentioned, the Board of Regents, it's all about perspective, right? So your regents are typically composed of, community leaders. They may be from a little while away. They may be recent graduates. They may be, graduates of 40, 50 years ago. They may have experience in athletics. So, I mean, truthfully, to present that student perspective of, like these are issues that the decisions we make today will be affecting the next year of students. And just having that kind of perspective of very ground level. We're not very, high up in the clouds when it comes to especially the student perspective because, I will be paying, whatever, tuition that the Board of Regents sets for the university, the housing, meal plans, things like that. So I mean, at the end of the day, having someone that's directly affected and impacted by decisions, I mean, you have to have them have a seat at the table, and I'm grateful for that I get to have that seat at the table. And of course, with that, that means that as particularly as a student regent, I need to bring all students to the table, all their perspectives and opinions to the table. So it's not just, whatever Brady Lawson thinks as a student. That means that whatever every other student here on this campus thinks, as a collective, as a student body.
So, how did your experiences in FFA help you grow into the leader that you are now? And how do you predict that your experiences in FFA will help you in your new role as the SGA and student body president?
Yeah, so as we've mentioned before, it's really all about perspective, appreciating different perspectives, being considerate of others. That like we don't all come from the same background. We don't all come from the same particular perspective on any particular issue. Truthfully, it comes down to being able to disagree without being disagreeable. So, that means, at the end of the day, professionally, we may disagree, we may have different opinions, but I respect your opinion. That's something that has certainly been taught, to me through FFA in terms of, being from, I want to say a smaller chapter in Morgan County, compared to maybe like some larger chapters throughout the state, and especially, being from Eastern Kentucky and, having some different perspectives of people from across the state. I mean, at the end of the day, we all have different opinions, we all have different mindsets and, views on what life should all be about, when it comes to particularly, making difficult decisions. And like you said, um, at the university level, as being student body president, I'm going to be surrounded by opinions from people that, I went to high school with, but also people that, come from way out of state across and potentially even out of the country. So being able to, sit down at a table and say, these are the different experiences, perspectives, these are the different opinions. And at the end of the day, knowing that whatever decision you make, number one, you're going to be held accountable for it, and number two, it is an informed decision. So going forward, I mean, in terms of what that looks like for me, I mean, I need to be able to make informed decisions and surround myself with people that are prepared to give me advice and opinions, and also accept that sometimes that may not be what the ultimate decision is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I commend you for that, Brady. You have always been a real learner, is what I would say. If we were going to do visits when you were a state officer, you were really engaged about who the people were we were visiting, what they did, and you are prepared for this. You're going to be awesome in this role as SGA president. That student body is lucky to have you representing them. A question that we have about the FFA Foundation. So tell me, how did the FFA Foundation maybe support your journey as an FFA member? Where were some ways that we were impactful? And why would you encourage somebody to stay engaged and continue or start being a donor to the Kentucky FFA Foundation?
Right. So for me, the foundation is particularly helpful with relationship building and networking, if you will. So for instance, at the gala, the state officers typically help with the gala. I've been back multiple times to help out. But when it comes to being there, you're not only there to help out, but provide, good conversation, for instance. But being able to network with people, that I may potentially be working with. For instance, Adam Hinton, I frequently see him a lot. He's also a regent on the Morehead State Board of Regents. So you can see where it kind of all ties in, if you will. But particularly the foundation has been, I mean, extremely good at number one, networking, and number two, teaching me how to network with people with people that I may not have a lot in common with. It was on our industry tours that I saw a soybean for the first time, like up close. I've seen, like, I've driven by the fields, of course, but when you go to Owensboro Grain, and you see a soybean up close for the first time, seeing those types of things, being exposed to things that, like I've mentioned previously, that you may not be exposed to every single day. Um, it really is just a learning experience. Being able to go outside of my comfort zone, go outside what I see typically every day in Morgan County or in Morehead. Um, Truthfully, that's where the real impact is made, is being able to expose people like me to things that I can learn from and I haven't seen before, things like that. In terms of remaining engaged, I mean, we are the foundation that is growing leaders every single day, and you'd be surprised at what may seem minuscule at first, just for instance, a jacket, an FFA jacket. But like I said earlier, being comfortable where you are, that jacket may make someone more comfortable, may make someone, strive to run for a leadership position in their chapter. I have no doubt, zero doubt in my mind, that I would not be where I am today if, number one, I hadn't ever joined FFA, if I hadn't ran for a chapter position, if I hadn't ran for state office. So you would be really surprised that, where something that may seem small, just how much that can snowball into an opportunity like this. I mean, and like I said, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't, for my ag teachers that was like, hey, like, you should really, consider running for chapter office. That'd be really good for you. So you can see, and a lot of this starts very early on in an experience. So being able to make an impact early on, not just when you graduate, not just when you're chapter president, not just when you're state officer, but really, early on impacts, being able to travel to national convention for a cheaper cost, for example, going to the Washington Leadership Conference, for example. These types of things very early on can snowball and ultimately, typically end up very well.
Well said. And it's really incredible. And some of our favorite parts of our jobs are getting to hear those stories like yours. And there's so many others as well, where it was one small thing that helped them become the leader that they are in their homes and communities now, just like you, Brady. So you had a lot of life experiences for someone at your age, and it's obvious that you are such a true leader in your community. Uh, we always ask our guests the same three questions. I think it's really relevant for you, Brady. Is this first one is, what's the best piece of leadership advice you've ever received?
Yeah, so I didn't exactly receive this directly, but I was scrolling on Instagram one time. John Maxwell is a leadership expert, considered like the leading leadership expert in the world. And he has a quote that I believe goes walk ahead as an example, walk beside as a friend, and walk behind as a leader that empowers. And I really think that if you can strive to do those three things almost simultaneously, you can really grow some other people and make sure that you're growing yourself. That means, of course, that, just because you might be, you know, the president of an organization, for example, that doesn't mean that you're always the one, up on stage in the front, commanding things, managing things. Sometimes, that looks a lot more of, you know, having this other person really step into that role, take responsibility and grow themselves. At the end of the day, leadership isn't necessarily about managing. There's certainly a distinction there between leadership and managing. I think that, you can tell people what to do and, expect them to do it, but inspiring them to do more than what you ask of them. I think at the end of the day, that's true leadership. So it's not only about, being in front of people. It's not only about, being beside of them and supporting them, but also giving them the opportunity to take on responsibility and grow themselves and actually become leaders themselves. At the end of the day, I mean, that's true. That's what true leadership is.
That's great advice. Yeah.
Yeah, that is wonderful. Thank you, Instagram. John Maxwell. So we ask people about who has poured into their life and who's given back. Philanthropy is all about giving back. That's what we do as the Kentucky FFA Foundation. You can do that in a lot of ways. And so we want to give you the opportunity to shout out someone who's really poured into you and given back and invested into your life.
Right. So with this one, I mean, I'm incredibly lucky to have a really good support system, a lot of friends and family that really support what I do. In particular, I'm going to shout out Emma Sherman, who is also a former state officer, and is actually younger than me for that matter. I consider her a dear friend and a mentor of mine. Just her ability to execute, to do things correctly, do things on time is just astounding to me. Because at the end of the day, I mean, we're all prone to making mistakes, but being able to pick yourself up from those mistakes is certainly something that Emma's had to help me through multiple times, especially, when I needed some advice, but also just being an encourager. She has been an incredible encourager of me. She's encouraged me in almost everything we've done together, especially in student government. She's also involved in student government here at Morehead State. So we've been not only friends, but also teammates as well. But, having someone that you can depend on as that rock, if you will, that anchor, that really provides a stable presence, stable encouragement. I really can't thank her enough for doing that for me, especially these past couple years.
Oh, it's great to have a friend like that. And we love Emma. We're Team Emma around here too, Brady. The last question we always ask our guests is, what is something you're loving right now that's helping you grow? So this could be anything.
So at my desk at home, I have a calendar that has quotes on it. I'm a big quote fan. I love quotes, as you can tell with that one of John Maxwell I just pulled out. I love quotes. So I have a calendar on my desk at home that, like you can like rip like the little pieces of paper off of it. But not only does it tell you the day and the time, but it also gives you not the time, but the day of the month, of course. But it also gives you a leadership quote for the day and something, like to kind of, like go along, whatever you may be doing that day, keep that in the back of your mind, kind of center your actions and your activities and your thoughts around that for the day. I found it exceptionally helpful to not only, throughout the day, but also to get my day off to the right start, the right mentality. Most of them involve serving others. Um, I'll be honest with you, I can't remember what today's was, but I do remember that it had something to do with, taking intentional actions to help others today. And that's certainly something that, in my position, and I think with or without a position at all, I think it's certainly something that we can all heed and try to use every single day. So
That's great. That's always fun to have something that you look forward to every day and that's inspiring. And Brady, we appreciate your time today that you've given us and that you've shared so much. I hope that students who listen to this feel encouraged about what's next and how to continue to take the skills that FFA has given them into not only their career, but their college career that's ahead of them and put it to good use and to continue to give back and serve the people around you. Yeah. Thank you for being with us.
I appreciate that. Thank you all. Once again, like I said, I mean, I wouldn't be where I am without Kentucky FFA, without the foundation. So just thank you all. And yeah, just thank you all.
Yeah. Well, this is great. Well, you all, thank you for joining us for another episode of Growing Kentucky's Leaders. Growing Kentucky's Leaders is a podcast brought to you by the Kentucky FFA Foundation. Our music is performed by Bourbon County FFA member Joe Fritch. Artwork is by Julie Fritch Creative. Your hosts are Sheldon McKinney and Ruth Ann Fink, and you can find us on all social platforms at Kentucky FFA.